Go Slow with Joe, a podcast of talks between mind and soul, while rambling between personal and real experiences, and also some hypothetical, bringing always a deep meaning about everything with inner connection, truth, and mindfulness. Welcome. Hello, welcome to the episode number 46 of the Go Slow with Joe podcast. I hope that February treated you very well. For me, it was a month to work again on my fears, on my traumas, a lot with my physical body, because as I shared with you on Instagram, I went on the treat that I call my fear retreat, which I've started doing a few years ago only. So I was already quite a big of an adult when I started snowboarding. So it's something that I truly do while dealing with my fears and dealing with fears that I have since I'm a child. So, it's something that I'm so aware of my body. I'm so aware also of my fears that when I go on these sort of trips, and when I go on this trip specifically, that usually happens once a year, I'm just so in contact with my inner child and on fears that I didn't even remember that I had. And I'm so aware also of my body. And year by year, after year, I just realize how much I have evolved. Not actually, of course, physically and on the sports itself, but more than that, I just realize of how much I evolve in terms of a person, how much I deal with discomfort feelings, how much I deal with the fact that I might be falling, how much I've changed already dealing with the fact that sometimes I'm just tired. And since I'm a projector in human design, I sometimes what I really want to do is just look at the mountains and stay sitting down in a little nice cafe and just having a tea or and observing people, or I just like to sit on the mountain and do nothing, for example. So I'm not one of these people who would just go like for 5 hours straight down the slopes. I'm not like that, and I just accept so much more nowadays that I'm just like this, and that sometimes I need even a day to break a little bit. Not because I'm doing well and I need to break, but sometimes I just need one day doing nothing. And right now I just accept so much more, my how much I can challenge myself and how much I just feel like I need to stop. So it's just year after year, and doing something that I started doing just a few years ago, year after year, I'm just realizing that it's so much more than about the sports. It's much more than that, and this is why I've started calling it my fear retreat since last year, because it's like, you know what, since or every time I do this, I'm just dealing with so much, and I'm challenging myself. I'm going with fear. I'm improving. Then the next day I'm worse again, like I'm worse than I was on the day before, because I'm tired or because my mind today is not so confident, and I need to work better on my chakras in my morning meditation for me to be a little bit stronger today. Or I'm just I've nourished myself better, so I feel better as well, so it's like all this big mix of different feelings and different roots of the issue of doing or not doing, and then the day is just 90% spent doing this. So it's so meditative, and it's just so relaxing at the same time. And I came back sore from like my muscles and with black spots because I've fallen and all this, but it's so interesting how it really makes me grow so much, and how much also I just realize again that year after year, I'm just dealing with things and with the same things differently. And yes, this is it basically. So February for me was a lot about this, and I told you on the last episode that I've fallen from my bike, and it was just a few days before going on this trip. So I don't know how I did it, but I know that Joanna from before would be like, you know what? I'm suffering, so I don't want to go, or I'm gonna go slower. And you know what? Like I was like, you know what? Let me just do what I can. And even though I was still a little bit hurt on my leg, so yes, like again, year after year, and after doing something and putting some practice into it and putting some positive emotions onto it and positive thoughts, things really can just kind of change a little bit, or even the things that are still the same, even my fears that are still there, I just treat them differently and treat them with more respect and more compassion, and also sometimes with a little bit of more strictness, like, you know what, you've dealt with this, so you can do this again. Or right now, I'm just, I just need to just go and sip a tea and just be there, just relaxing and having a feminine day. So, it's all about balance, but for me, the most important part is that I use a lot what I preach here and what I do in my work in these practical things in life. And for me, this is the beauty of inner work, right? It's just that then you catch all this that you've learned, and then you are applying this into your life. In our reading, there is a part where we see in which phase we are in regards to what we are talking about in the oral reading. And I love that because, for example, for me, it's like we can learn a lot, we can read lots of books, we can do all the therapies, but then if we don't grab that knowledge and that evolution that it's now in our minds, maybe even in our emotions, and if we don't grab this and we don't put this into practice in our lives, it's a bit shallow, or it just goes into that box of things I've done. But then if you don't practice it, and sometimes there are things that we don't have to practice because they might just be self-explanatory, or there are things that sometimes we just don't have to practice so much because they are just not for us. But most of them, it's like, okay, how can I apply this into my life? Because I feel like no one wants to do things and to learn things that we cannot practice. And I feel like even, oh my God, I could go on and on with this thought now, but um, like typical school, like the classical school, I feel like I was so bored sometimes as a kid because of that, and as a teenager, because you know what, like if I'm not going to apply this, or if I'm not expecting to apply this, why am I using it? And of course I was a bit arrogant sometimes without knowing it, of course. Like there were things that probably I was learning and I'm like, this is so boring, and now it's so useful for my life and I didn't know it back then. But most importantly, it's like if it's not practical, and maybe I'm a very practical person, that's why, but if I'm not going to use it, why am I, if I'm not going to be able to practice this in my life, if I'm not going to be able to apply it, or even to exemplify this with other things that I actually live in my life, it's something that I cannot learn as much as I would learn something else. So for me, for example, doing snowboard, it's like I'm learning how to even I'm learning how to move my body differently, but most of all, I'm just learning how to let go of control, or being okay with some speed, so no control, and knowing that I will definitely be falling. So dealing with that constant fear of failure and all these things, right? Like I told you in the last episode. So it's something that I can, in a practical term, I can apply. So yes, maybe this school thing, I will still think about it, and then one day maybe I will share it. But it's definitely from my teenager years, and I work with some young people, and I know that this is something that it's hard, right? Like how we learn, the way how we learn, and how the things are being applied and sent and shared with us. I think it's something that it really makes us it really changes the way how we learn, right? So for me to be able to apply the things that I use here, like in English is said, practice what you preach, right? So for me to be able to use what I preach here, what I do for work in my life, is just cherry on top of the cake. It's what I really love, and I feel like that's really the main goal of yes, self-development, jobs, and work, and working on ourselves, basically. Okay, so this was February for me. I think it was already a big introduction. I hope you're still with me, because what I want to talk to you about today is minimalism. And okay, I'm going to do like, I feel like I'm going to bring you, yeah, minimalism. So let me start from this side. A few years ago, probably like 4 years ago, more or less, I've started decluttering a lot. So decluttering things, definitely. So I had clothes, I had things, especially clothes. I had clothes that I would um, have and own since, I don't know, when I was 12, because I didn't grow up that much. So I did, but not in physical terms. So there were t-shirts or things that would still fit me. So I just didn't want to be without them. So I just started like, of course, there were things that were still at my parents', other things that were in my place. And then I moved a lot when I was in uni. Then I moved to London, to the Netherlands, to London, then to Spain. So each time I would move, of course, I would have more things and even decoration things, because I don't know if you know, but I've worked into the decoration field, decoration, interior design. This is what I meant. So I had like little candles and little things that I would have in my shelves and all these. And I knew that sometimes I would sell a few things, like when I would move, or I would give them away, or then I would just grab them and put them in my childhood room. So that started being like not super full, because I've always been an aesthetic person. I was always like super worried about the aesthetics of things, but still, like, I would have more and more and more things. And like one candle per year, imagine that in 10 years you would have 10 more candles than you have right now. So you can imagine this. And I would, of course, have a very hard time letting go things. Some things because people would have offered me, or some things because I just knew that they would be, for example, interior design things. I knew that these things, that they would be good, or they would last or forever, and that they would be in the fashion still, or updated like for so long. So I just didn't really want to let them go. And so a few years ago, I just started, you know what, I have to start decluttering. And it was also more or less in the time when I started applying Reiki and all these. So, like you cleanse your energy, and along with your energy, it goes your house, it goes your belongings. And in terms of clothes, what I felt was that I had a lot of clothes, like these ones that I was telling you about, that I could be wearing them since I was 12. I have these clothes that sometimes they would, of course, they had an emotional importance and symbolism for me. That's why I still own them. But most importantly, what I felt was that they were there because I was expecting. I had those clothes that were just, okay, whenever I don't feel so good, or whenever I just want to stay at home, I would have these clothes. And I just realized that it's like, you know what? This makes no sense, because I don't want to own things for the days when I feel bad, because I'm not expecting to have bad days. And of course that we all have bad days. This is, of course, but I don't want to have clothes that are just making me expect for me to feel that way, because that brings an energy that it's also a heavy energy into your life. It's like, imagine, let me see if I can see the okay, imagine that you have these friends that you only meet them when you're low. uh, that's not a very good sign, because it means that these are not friends for when you are happy, or the opposite even, so it's the same things the same thing with the things that we own. For example, even the food that you have in your cupboard, and that you have in your fridge. If you have food expecting if you have food, unhealthy food, for the days when you just are craving something, I'm pretty sure that you will be craving those things much more often than if you wouldn't have it. And for me, I've started being very minimalist in terms of the clothes that I own, the shoes. I have an episode about the shoes that you own. It's like, I don't know, maybe the 30th more or less episode, but even the shoes that have a special meaning also for family constellation. So if you are interested about it, just go down and check the other episodes as well. Wearing your own shoes, it's something like that. But I started being very conscious about the things that I would have at home, my clothes, my earrings, all these jewelry things, and my makeup, creams, all these things. And I've realized that I had so many things that were just there sitting down, waiting for me to wear them, to use them. And you know what? I've never been a person that would shop a lot nor anything. But, you know, like year by year, or if you still own things that you used to own when you were 12, it's like just because they still fit you. I mean, of course, that by now, if you're 30, you must have a lot of things, right? So I just started decluttering a lot, and even interior design things. Like I just now I have so little of those things, even though I love interior design and all these things. For example, the food that I have in my fridge and in my freezer, for example, we own a very little freezer. And for me, it's something that at some point I felt like, is this normal? But then I started thinking, no, if I have a huge freezer, you know, like those freezers that our parents would have at home, that they are like a huge box. Uh, it's like, of course, for me and my husband, we are just two. But of course, that if you have a family of 4 or 5 people, I totally understand. But it's like I'm not living in a context right now where I need to have that much food in my freezer. And the same thing happened in Lisbon when I started decluttering and applying these minimalism thoughts, because um, it's like I don't have to expect to be doing that recipe to have these things. Of course, we have a few things that they are just leftovers, for example, flour or whatever. But it's like even in the freezer, it's like this week I'm planning to cook this, and that, and I have just a few extra things that they are just yeah, extra, definitely, like a package of peas, for example. I don't use them all in one recipe, so I have half of it in the freezer waiting for me to use it. But I don't buy like extra, because I'm not expecting to have that scarcity in my life. I'm not expecting, for example, the junk food example I gave you before. It's like, why would I buy, for example, like lots of chocolates or chips if I know that they're unhealthy, for that specific day that I might want to have them? I don't need to have that in my home, because if I want it, I'll just go downstairs to the supermarket, or I'll just order it on that day, or I'll just ask for someone to bring it to me. Like, I don't know, my husband comes from work and he brings it to me because I'm really hungry and I really want to eat that. So, and of course, please don't interpret this as an extreme thing. I have a few things that are not so healthy in my cupboard as well and in my fridge. But what I mean is that it's also the same thing with quantity, not only about quality, but quantity. The fridge example I was just giving to you, it's like, why would I have, like, I don't know, so many frozen, or so much frozen food if I'm just expecting to cook this week? Because you know what usually happens is that you start just having lots and lots of things that then you will not be hungry about, you will not want to cook, because you even forget that you have these things in the freezer. So it's like, it's all these energetic things, because food is also energetic, and our clothes as well, everything owns like its energy. Like, it's just things that start being there, uh, things that start being stuck. Also, for example, receipts, all these things from time to time. Of course, sometimes I need to save some things, but from time to time I just go into my drawer where these things are, and I'm just like, you know what, let me just cleanse this, I don't need this anymore, this has already been sorted out, so I'll just clean. um Books, for example, I own a Kindle, even though I have now I've just realized that technical books, like self-development books and books with some theory about psychology and all that I read, these books I actually like to own them. But for example, fiction books, I just don't feel like it makes sense for me to have hundreds of love stories in my shelf. And this is just my perspective. It doesn't have to be yours. It can be even the opposite. So I'm lucky enough to be able to own a Kindle, and also to be able to have physical books. But you know what I mean is that I try to minimize, minimalize. I don't know. I try to just not have a lot that I will have to declutter later. Okay, it's important for me. Let me see. Yes, I will go into that. I will just go into this explanation right now. This is about things that I own, right? So clothes, interior design things, decoration things, papers, food, even all these things, right? For example, right now I live in the summer constantly, like all year long. It's summer here in Abu Dhabi, so I have like 2 or 3 jackets and my ski clothes with me. But I have like in Portugal, I have like 2 or 3 jumpers and 2 or 3 jackets that are winter based. But that's it, it's like I go there in the winter just sometimes, so it makes no sense for me to have a lot. And I just ask my mom for some clothes when I'm there. So it's a way also to manage this. So if you're listening to me and if you live here, maybe this might be something that I don't know if you do already, but it's just my example, of course. And what I told you that I wanted to tell you is that it's not from a point of view of scarcity, if you know what I mean, escassez. It's not from that point of view. And I feel that sometimes when we accumulate a lot of things that we are expecting to wear afterwards, or that we just are waiting for the perfect moment to wear that perfect dress, or we have these clothes for whenever we feel not so well with our lives, what we feel is that we are putting into our life a mindset of scarcity because we are waiting for something, or we are afraid of something lacking in our life. So when I tell you that I don't own many things now, I don't feel like and I even try to say this in a positive way because I've learned and I've understood that in the beginning, I was very comfortable with having nothing. So I was super not into any physical thing. So I was only investing my money only in therapy, only like in courses and all this. And at some point I realized that, wait, but I'm still a human and I still like to wear things that I feel like they define me. So I realized that this minimalist thing started being a thing that it was energetic. I had to declutter. And at some point it went to a peak of like, okay, so now I own very little things that I don't even care the way how I look. So that was a little bit of a scarcity point of view. Like I was happy that I owned less because I was comfortable with that humility side of society of like not owning very much and being not superficial at all. And now I feel like I've approached a very balanced way of like, you know what, I still like to look well and I still like to wear things that I feel like that represent me. So for me, it's important that whenever I can, that I get something that represents me. And instead of buying, for example, very cheap things that, for example, 2 or 3 shirts because they are very cheap and because, yes, and because they are very cheap and I feel like I need them, I just prefer to buy 1 or 2 that might be more expensive or not, to be honest, or not, but that I feel like they really represent me. So now when I go shopping, I'm like, do I really feel special in this, or is just a normal thing? Do I really feel like this represents me, or is just something that I'm buying because I'm unsatisfied with something else in my life? So whenever I get something new now, I really realize that, or I really make this thought and I really think about this in a very like my highest self. I don't want to buy things because I feel bad today. I want to buy things because this makes me feel good. And because I feel like whenever I'm gonna wear this, I'm gonna be the Joanna that I am, that I truly am, that really feels well with herself. And you know what? Sometimes of course, I have bad days, and sometimes we all like to have some special dresses and all these. I totally understand that, and I also own a few of those things. But I'm not expecting for the perfect day to wear things because every day is special. Every day is like the best day. Every day could be like our last day. So let's wear the best clothes that we own, right? So I'm wearing this t-shirt that probably you've already seen so many times in myself, but I don't feel like I have less. I feel like this shirt really represents me. So I'm going to wear them whenever I want. It's clean. I feel well inside of it. So that's it. And I'm not approaching minimalism now in a scarcity point of view, like I told you, like less, 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 and I don't even care about my physical appearance. No, I still do, but in a different way, in a more, I feel like it's an adult version. It's like, I remember, for example, being a teenager and sometimes, or like not even a teenager, imagine I would be in uni and I had a party that night and I had like 10 euros and I would be like, okay, let me go to Zara or something and see if I can find something. And I remember that I would wear that thing that night and I wouldn't want to wear it any other night because that actually stopped representing me in the moment that I bought it. And then I would just stay with these things and I would wear them, but I wouldn't feel like myself. So for me, these things really have energy. And for example, if I wore something in a day that I didn't feel so well, and if I didn't feel so well in that day, probably I will look at that piece of clothes and I will be like, what does this tell me? How did I feel when I buy this? Um, which Joanna was I when I wore that? And that really makes me think a lot. And it really makes me, I really analyze things in this, like very thoroughly. Um, because I feel like everything has energy and everything has our energy. And if I didn't feel well in those clothes, you can, I tell you, I'm going into detail into that. And sometimes I just leave it around like, today's not the best day to analyze it. But next time that I'm going to wear it, I'm going to be very aware if I'm feeling the same way or not. So all these things matter for me. That's why I became such a minimalist. And not only in the things of that I wear, but also the things that I do. I used to be this person that would do every single thing. And then, of course, knowing that I'm a projector and knowing that I have to respect my energy and working on my feminine energy to be just also still when sometimes I feel it and doing nothing and all this. I just, um, I've just realized that I was a very unsatisfied person. Like I would go to a nice coffee shop in my any time in my life, and I would be like, okay, what's next? What's next? And it's not even because I was caffeinated, like I was not drinking coffee. It's like I was just never there. I was just never allowing myself to be present and to be satisfied with the specific thing that I was doing. So I started realizing that, you know what, for example, for my weekend, I plan one thing. And maybe I have one or two wishes, like maybe I wish to go to that restaurant, maybe I wish to have that thing figured out, but I try not to plan too many things. And when I plan too many things, I either look into it to see if it's possible not to plan so many things, or I just accept it because sometimes we are in a context that we cannot just go around it. But what I mean is that doing less is also okay. And sometimes life asks us to do more. It's fine, of course, even at work, I mean, but I try not to plan many things, and I try also for life to surprise me and to bring, like, I like to be able to accept an invitation, last minute invitation. And sometimes it's not possible, but I like to have that possibility. I like to have that open schedule. And sometimes the invitation even comes from me because maybe I'm gonna wake up in a bad mood and I need time to just manage that and to live with that. So I like to have less things to do actually. And I'm not a procrastinator. Yes, procrastinator. Yes, I'm not a procrastinator. I used to be a lot when I was struggling so much when I was studying and struggling so much with perfectionism. But I don't usually go into that procrastination mind or point of view or behavior. But there are a few things that I know that it's for me, it's like prioritizing. So is this a priority right now or not? Because if it's not, I know that I have an airy mind. I'm a Libra, so I'm like all over the place sometimes, like with my mind, even though it might not look like like it. But so for me, it's important that I know what's a priority. And I'm telling you this, please don't feel like this is from a perfection point of view, because I still go into craziness sometimes, like, oh, I plan too many things, or I don't know what's a priority right now, or I have 3 things that are a priority and I'm not being able to manage it. That still happens to me. But in terms of minimalism, I just try to I don't try, my opinion about the verb trying. But I just really make an effort to it's not even an effort anymore, actually. I just really grew a lot this feeling of, okay, it's okay not to have too many things planned. And maybe if today the only thing that I do, for example, in a weekend is to go outside to have a cappuccino, okay, it's fine. I'm fine with that. Because I feel like we are also in a social context where more, the more we do, the more we accomplish, the more things we do, the more things we have to share on Instagram and all this. It's like, it's a lot, and no one can really deal with that. I feel in a healthy way, to be honest. And you might have a different energy than me. It's totally fine. It's totally normal. We are all individuals, but I feel like that really comes from an insatisfaction point of view. Yeah, and maybe I'll go into detail on that in the future. Okay, something else that I became a minimalist about, of ideas. Okay, this really worries me, to be honest, nowadays, because you go online and there are so many trends. There are so many answers to our problems. There are so many ways of approaching things. And to be honest, I got to a point in my life where I felt like, you know what? I was so open to everything that it started being too much. It's like, oh, the healthiest thing is being a vegan. Of no, actually, it's eating all meat. Or no, it's just doing yoga. No, actually, it's doing CrossFit. It's like suddenly you have all these options. And I feel like, and to be honest, I see many people that come to my appointments with these feelings of like, it's too much. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And it's like, I think that we've kind of forgotten to look into ourselves and see if it makes sense to us or not. And I talk about this. I'm not sure if I talked about this already in the podcast, but I talk about a lot about this in terms of my routines. From time to time, I change my routines. It's like, is this still making sense? Am I still into eating oats in the morning, or actually today I just feel like eating eggs? It's like we are here to change. And to be honest, I'm not the same person every day. I mean, I'm the same person, but sometimes I just wake up differently, and I wake up with different intentions, and I wake up with different priorities, and I wake up with different wishes and needs to be nourished as well. So I feel like this ideas thing is also connected to this, because it's like suddenly you go online, or you have like all the books to read and all the information is available to us, which is so nice. But isn't it too much sometimes? And I feel like that also drives us into insatisfaction. And I feel like this is very confusing for us. And I don't know, more trends right now. The traditional wives, the ones that are feminists and that hate men, the ones that are girl bosses, the ones that they are submissive to husbands. There are so many trends, to be honest. And it's like, I'm just giving you just a few examples that just came up to my mind right now. And to be honest, maybe it's my stubbornness point of view, but I don't want any trend in my life. I want to build my own trend. And maybe I'm going to share my own trend with you one day, and it's going to become a trend as well. Please allow me to change, and please allow me also to say something now that I'm not going to agree with in the future. But I feel like trends really came into our lives some of them are very funny, of course, some videos and all, but most of them in terms of approaches and all, it's like sort of religion. And I love religions, and I love all the religions, or most of all the ones that I know the best, but I feel like it can become a little bit dangerous, because suddenly you just identify yourself with that trend. You just identify yourself with that. You're just putting yourself into a box again. And for me, that doesn't work. And maybe it's my stubbornness, like I told you, like I don't want to be in any trends. I just want to do I just want to do me. I just want to do myself. I just want to be me. I just want to do the best that I can with what I am right now. And I told you this sentence, I think, in the last episode, which is, for example, I could want to be a traditional wife, which is totally fine. There is no judgment at all from my side in terms of most of the trends. Some of them, of course, I judge because I don't agree with them. But for example, in this one, I could be it, but like I can be this maybe in 10 years, and maybe I'm not going to be able to be it now, or I'm able to do it now and not in the future because my life changes. So what for me is most important is that what am I right now? What is my life asking me to be right now? What can I be right now with what I know? And for me, sometimes sharing this, it's kind of dangerous. I still enjoy sharing some of my routines and some of the things that I like with you all, especially on Instagram, which is where I post the most. But I just feel like started filtering a lot, and also seeing things with like a little bit of a grain of salt, or like in a more even critical way. Like, does this make sense to me right now? No, it doesn't. I can accept that makes sense to that person right now without judgment, because like since I work as a therapist, as an aura reader therapist, and as a facilitator of family constellations, my work as a healer, as a therapist, is not to judge you. It's not from a point of view of judging. It's from a point of view of like me as a person. When I go online and when I go into books and I read things, I'm going to criticize them. I'm going to see them from my point of view, and I'm going to see if that makes sense to me 2024 in March, and it might make sense to me in April, but right now it might not make sense to me anymore. So for me, it was important also to be a minimalist in these terms, because it's like, and even I consume a lot of things. For example, in terms of music, I love all types of music. In terms of diets, I love all types of diets. I really like to try, and I feel like we are here to try. And I like some trends, like I told you, and I feel like some trends, for example, in these social trends online, they tell us a lot, and they are really uh, pointing out what we are lacking as a society in this present moment. But that doesn't mean that I will follow everything. And I feel like it's important that we know what it is for us, and we can sometimes, to know what it is for us, we have to try. I understand, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's just something that, what, I am who I am. And even though I'm here to evolve and I'm going to change, right now, this is not for me. It's what I feel. It's what I don't feel. I don't feel like this is for me right now. And that's totally fine too. I feel like becoming a minimalist also of ideas, like I called it, made me realize that being me right now is enough. Um, and I tell you this from a point of view of someone who is me, who's always trying to improve every single thing. Like, I feel I have an emotion, I point it out, and I'm like, I need to work on this. Of course, also from my job, right? It's my job to do that in myself, so I can also be a better therapist for you. But sometimes what we feel is that I'm still not enough. I still need to try that trend. I still need to try that course or whatever. And sometimes we just don't. Being what you are right now is enough. And I'm not telling you that you shouldn't work on what's uncomfortable. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't try new things. No, I'm just telling you that sometimes it's okay to filter. Even if we have a personal relationship with someone who's going into that trend or whatever, it's okay. It's like, right now, with how mature I am right now or how immature I am right now, this is what I know. So this is it. This is how I can see things right now. And maybe in the future I'm going to change, but this is what I can see right now. So I became definitely a minimalist of things that I own, things that I do, and ideas that I consume. Yes, this is it. And like being a Libra, my sun sign in zodiac sign, uh, this really came to simplify my life a lot. It used to be hard. I remember waking up as a teenager and staying in bed and be like, what am I going to wear today? I used to have so many options, and I'm so grateful for it, that my parents could provide me with many options of clothes, for example. But I used to have so many options that this would stress me out so much. I'll be like, the moment I had to take these little decisions would be just hell for me, to be honest. And right now I don't own that many options. So I'm much more comfortable with choosing what it is for me right now. Jewelry, shoes, all these things, this all applies, to be honest. I just don't like to have many options. This is it. And from a Libra point of view, I feel like this came to simplify my life a lot. And I'm just so happy with that. And yes, it's not scarcity, it's simplicity. Simplicity. Minimalism for me is simplicity, not scarcity. And I brought you a sentence, which is, I do not define myself for what I own, for how much I do, and for any trend or routine or belief that I own or that I know. There are, of course, some beliefs that I feel like it's me practicing what I preach, like I told you in the beginning. But wow, in this last year, with lots of humbleness, like I told you, I really felt like, yes, I've really questioned a lot, many of the beliefs that I had. And I just realized that I couldn't really define myself for or by any of these things, like the minimalism, like if today a piece of clothes that I own is just ruined, I just have to deal with that loss. And this is life, right? So it's the same thing with any other thing in life. And just to finish, but to give you like the point of view from family constellations, I remember my parents telling me, because I've moved a lot, even at uni where I've studied, and afterwards, since I've lived in a few countries and in many houses as well, my parents would tell me, you know what, you're always with your house on your back. In Portuguese, andas com a casa às costas. And I remember, of course, we would laugh about this because I would be like the traveler, kind of. But now I just feel like the house that I carry is so much lighter. And this is like the multidimensionality of minimalism. I never brought minimalism or owning too many things or this indecision feeling of deciding what I am going to wear. I never brought this into a family constellation session, but I feel like by working on myself constantly and on my traumas, on my wounds, on my fears, I've indirectly worked also on this part, because now when for example, I prepare my luggage, and I started this episode telling you that I've traveled. When I prepare my luggage, it's like, oh, these are my best t-shirts. These are the ones that I'm gonna wear, or these are perfect for this occasion. So these are the ones that I'm gonna pack. And it's just so much easier to also to pack and to unpack and all this. And I feel like this also is multidimensional to my inner work, which is like, oh, my house now is so much lighter. So the things that I carry, like we all carry our own backpack. But the things that I carry right now in the house, that I carry with me on my back, is much lighter, definitely. And it's much more minimalist. And the responsibilities that I care that were not maybe mine, and that I've just assumed them because of love, because I felt like I was the best person to deal with them, they are just not mine anymore. So I can start decluttering as well. And I feel like this house that I carry nowadays is much lighter. So it still makes me laugh because it's a nice expression, especially in Portuguese. I don't know if in English there is like a literal translation kind of, or like a sentence that would represent this. I just did the literal translation, but it's like, I feel like by working the things that we own, the things that we do, the things that we consume, from a simplicity point of view, not from a scarcity point of view, I feel like we can, yes, we can definitely see things lighter. We can definitely see things more clearly. We can definitely carry just what makes sense to us. Like I was carrying clothes that I owned since I was like 12. Did that make sense? Was I still the same person? Did I still have the same energy when I bought that? Maybe not, right? So it's like, I need to let this go. And to be honest, especially in the things that I've owned, I think that I've done a big, big, big job in this, which is I'm so happy to be detached, not in a pathological point of view, because there are some things that I really take within me with such a big symbolism, and I really love owning them. Because it's also not good to be 100% detached, right? I think that we can all agree on that, but maybe I can bring this in another episode. But still, like, I'm okay with letting things go. Like, this has been so good to me, but it's time to let it go. It's okay. Or this has served me so much and I want to keep it or not, you know? So it's like, I feel like it's a mix of both. And I feel like minimalism and caring what it's actually, and I know that there are different versions of minimalism. For me, this is my symbolic minimalism. It's like I own what it's symbolic to me. I own what I wear. I own what I like to wear. I own who I am. Um, and I try to consume what really makes sense to me. And yes, it's like, I think it's a working process, definitely, and it's something that it comes also from routines, from habits, and it definitely comes from you constantly looking at yourself and you constantly looking at the intention. Why are you buying this? Why are you consuming this? Why are you reading this? Why are you doing this? Why are you planning this plan for the weekend that it's going to take you the whole weekend away and you're not going to have time for yourself, for example? So yes, this is my journey with minimalism. It's interesting because I think that from scarcity point of view, I could also tell you that coming from a family where everyone has been always so humble, and some people even went through hunger, I know that I have this scarcity point of view as well from that, right? So not being afraid of not having enough. So I would have to just have things close to me, because I also had that whenever I would go somewhere, I would just want to have all the clothes with me, or I had to have like 3 options for each day of clothes, for example. Same thing with the things that I would do, right? All these things. And now I'm just like, that doesn't make sense to me anymore, because now, fortunately, I'm just living in the 21st century in 2024, and we don't go through this anymore, fortunately. And I tell you this from a very humble point of view, and knowing that life is very surprising and we never know what can happen, but it's not my reality right now. So why would I be working to and while counting on that scarcity? This is it. Thank you so much for listening. The Portuguese word I want to bring you today is minimalismo. So it means minimalism, of course. Thank you for being here. Have a happy, lovely month of March. It's going to be the last month of this astrological year. So on the 20th of March, I think. Yes, spring starts. So the new astrological year starts on the 20th, definitely. Then the spring, I think it's on the 20th as well. So yes, have a happy month. And if you decide to declutter, happy decluttering. And I'll see you soon.